But I'm so happy and excited to welcome Ann Hazlett and the rest of the governmental relations team here to talk about our meeting tonight. Ann is the Senior Director of Governmental Relations and Public Affairs for Purdue. Ann is an Indiana native and a graduate of Kansas State University and the IU School of Law. She holds a master's degree in agricultural law from the University of Arkansas. Hazlett's breadth of experience includes serving as Chief Counsel on the Senate Ag Committee, Director of Ag for the state of Indiana, and Chief of Staff for Indiana Lieutenant Governor Becky Skillman. From 2017 to 2019, Hazlett served as Assistant to the Secretary for Rural Development at the United States Department of Agriculture. Additionally, Hazlett has served as Senior Advisor for Rural Affairs at the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. In her current role, Ann represents Purdue before the Indiana General Assembly, Governor's Office, statewide and local elected officials, state agencies, Indiana Commission for Higher Education, and the Indiana State Board of Education. She works to formulate public policy along with key university personnel as it relates to government issues affecting Purdue. We're super excited to have you tonight, especially here as Purdue student government, as senators. We obviously kind of have an invested interest in policy, and we're excited to hear about what's been going on at the State House.
Excellent. Well, really appreciate the chance to be here tonight and the invitation to join you. I am joined tonight by Alicia Navziger and John Baugh, and together as a team, we represent Purdue on all things relating to state government affairs. We are currently 20 some days into the 2022 legislative session. There are days that it feels much longer than that, but time has really flown by quickly. And we just wanted to have some time with you tonight to give you a brief update on some of the legislation that we are tracking on behalf of Purdue. We are going to talk about some specific bills, but I wanted to start really with taking a few minutes to talk about some of the factors, if you will, in the environment for really to provide some context for the bills that are being considered this session. I want to start with the fact that this year is what is known as a short session, and that means that the General Assembly will address policy matters, but for the most part, they are not dealing with budget-related items. There is still obviously discussion about funding, and some of the policy ideas that get worked on this session might have a fiscal impact. So it's not that there's no discussion of money, but this is very different than a long session like what we saw last year, where they'd actually be formulating that 2-year budget. And importantly for us and the pace that we've been going at, it also means that they will meet for a shorter period of time. By law, they have to adjourn by March 14th, but they very well could end sooner than that. Session opened on Tuesday, January 4th. And it really has been a whirlwind since then. In a short session, the deadlines that are out there for bills to be filed and then heard come very fast. And this is a big week for us because it's what has different committee deadlines. The House committee deadline was yesterday, and then the Senate committee deadline is tomorrow. And that is significant to us because if a bill doesn't receive a hearing, there is very little chance of it being adopted somewhere else later in the process. So this is a week where you start to see what was filed, but the committee chairman is deciding not to take action on. And so you don't have to give that bill as much attention as you would be if it's something that it's clear is going to move, because there's been a hearing and then a vote in the committee. I also wanted to flag that this year is an election year for members of the House and, of course, a portion of the Senate. And in addition to just being an election year, this has been a significant time because there's a number of longtime members who have either retired or who have announced that they are not seeking re-election. And in some cases, these have included some prominent leaders in their areas of expertise. For example, we spend a lot of time with the Ways and Means Committee, and Chairman Tim Brown, who chairs that committee, will not be seeking re-election. In the agriculture space, which John Baugh handles for Purdue, the House Ag Committee Chair, Don Leahy, is not going to seek re-election either. And so that is certainly often with that member goes a lot of institutional knowledge, and folks begin to think about who's coming next and what will their priorities be, how are they going to run the committee. So that's something that's in the back of people's minds as well. And then also going back to this being an election year, when we think about elections, members will be running in their new districts that were drawn after redistricting from the 2020 census. In some cases, for some members, that's not a lot of change, but in other cases, there are members who will now be running against each other in districts or districts that have picked up new counties. And before we move into some specific bills that we're following, I did want to take a few minutes to just touch on a few topics that the House and the Senate leaders have expressed as session began as priorities. One of the topics that has been a priority for both chambers has been COVID response, and looking at, as the governor looks to end the public health emergency at some point, there are some things that he has signaled that he needed legislatively changes to be made before he could end the public health emergency. There was some desire, while the federal government is providing enhanced levels of reimbursement in the SNAP program, which is a food assistance program, and then Medicaid, which helps with health care for lower income Hoosiers. Those were some changes he wanted. And there was also a need to be able to have the state be able to continue to hold vaccination clinics. And that involved some legislative change that was needed as well. The House is also considering legislation to limit when an employer can require a COVID vaccine. And I'll touch on that in a second. Taxes has also been a big messaging point for both chambers. Again, this is not a budget year, but there's been a lot of interest in finding ways to give money back to Hoosier taxpayers in both chambers. Workforce is another theme that both chambers have discussed. There is a specific bill that's looking at some of the workforce shortages that we see in healthcare, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the governor's agenda has also included some legislation to provide incentives to attract more remote workers to Indiana, and then also looking at how we can better serve unemployed Hoosiers with jobs and training opportunities. That's been a focus for him. And then there's been a number of miscellaneous issues. Healthcare, the cost of healthcare has been something that has been an ongoing discussion in our state, and looking at how we can lower those costs. There's been a specific interest in the cost around prescription drugs. Also looking at how to address some of the needs coming out of the pandemic, telemedicine, professional licensing, access to dental care. There's been kind of a hodgepodge of issues in the healthcare space. Education, a lot of bills in that area, and Alicia will touch on a couple of those in the bills that she walks through. Public safety, there's been a discussion about how we can support public safety efforts at the local community level, as there's been increased violence in some communities around the state. And then some members of both caucuses have been talking about, again, that cost of medical care, access to child care, and a number of issues that fit together really in how we can make things better for Hoosier families. So with that high level overview, I'm going to talk about a few specific bills and then hand things over to Alicia and then John. I'm going to start with House Bill 1001. This is a bill that, again, deals with COVID response and has garnered a significant amount of media attention, and that's why I wanted to touch on it briefly. House Bill 1001 is the COVID response bill being led by House leadership. And this is really looking again at how to make those legislative changes that the governor has said he needs before he can end the public health emergency. Those provisions have not been controversial, but there's also been language in the House bill that has looked at whether an employer can mandate that an employee get the COVID vaccine. And that has generated a good deal of debate and brought some opposition from the business and employer communities who want to be able to decide if people are going to work for them, if they should be required to get the vaccine. House Bill 1001 includes a provision that employers could not impose that vaccine mandate unless they provide exemptions for medical or religious reasons. And some of the discussion coming out of that, beyond the employers wanting to be able to set the parameters for keeping their workplace safe, has also come down to testing, because if an employee is not going to get the vaccination, there will be a desire to do surveillance testing. And so who's going to pay for that testing has been a point of discussion as well. There have been many, many hours of hearing and debate on that bill, and House Bill 1001 passed out of the House last week on January 18th. It was a vote of 58 to 35. The companion bill in the Senate is SB 3, and this is on the floor of the Senate this week. It contains only the provisions that relate to the governor's emergency orders. And so as the bill prepares to move into conference, I think will continue to be considerable discussion between the differences of those bills, specifically from employers and business interests, who again are looking at that concern about whether you can mandate a vaccine for the employees. Another bill that I want to highlight that has been a priority for leadership in the House is tying to the workforce topic that I mentioned. And this is House Bill 1003. That bill is meant to address some of the nursing shortage that Indiana healthcare providers have seen for some time in our state, but particularly coming out of the pandemic. And House Bill 1003 is a package of changes to nursing education, as well as our regulatory system around nurse licensing in the state, and it's really meant to increase the number of nurses in Indiana. House Bill 1003 has been led largely by the Indiana Hospital Association, as well as Ivy Tech, and there's been some mixed reactions from other schools that have nursing programs in Indiana. Some of the changes that are in this bill, it would allow nursing programs both at the associate and the bachelor's degree level to increase enrollment at any rate that they deem appropriate by the program. It would also increase the number of simulation hours that a program can substitute for clinical hours. It would reduce the requirements for clinical preceptors, and it would allow some of our nursing programs to use more adjunct faculty. This bill passed last week by a vote of 91 to 2 in the House, so a lot of support there, and it now moves to the Senate. But there continues to be some points of discussion there by folks that are in nursing education, and then, of course, people in industry who need a workforce, and Ivy Tech in particular, who says that they are turning away many applicants each year because they have these restrictions that don't allow them to grow. So with that, I will turn this over to Alicia, who's going to talk a bit about some other bills that we have seen specifically in the education space, as well as the fiscal area.
Thanks, Anne. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to cover 4 bills at a high level. The first one I'm going to start with, the first 2 actually are education-related bills. House Bill 1190 is a free speech bill, specifically free speech at higher education institutions or state educational institutions, which is how the state defines the 7 publicly funded institutions. So as you guys know, Purdue has been a strong supporter of free speech, and so this bill is something that we've been involved with from the beginning. The bill is going to be on the 3rd reading calendar in the House tomorrow. At a high level, I would say that the author believes that the bill protects higher education communities by putting clear guidelines in place with regards to free speech. We definitely support the intent of the bill, but there have been a few changes that we have asked the author to make that we think would strengthen and clarify the language in the bill. And Purdue actually spearheaded those changes and worked with the other 6 public institutions to provide feedback to the author. Some of our suggested changes were taken either in whole or in part and put in an amendment as the bill came out of committee. But I think some of our greatest concerns around whether a claim can be made against the institution and what that looks like, and then a specific section dealing with free speech zones and time, place, and manner restrictions have not been addressed yet. So we hope to continue working on this bill as it moves from the House into the Senate in the next half. The second education bill is one that you may all have heard of. I guess it went a little viral, maybe that's generous to say, but around some circles in the state, and it is House Bill 1134. There was a Senate companion bill, 167. These bills deal with curriculum transparency and K-12, and the original bill had higher education involved as well. Some may talk about this as a bill targeting CRT. Tonight, actually, the bill passed on third reading in the House with a vote of 60 to 37. It generally deals with curriculum transparency at the K-12 level. Now it requires K-12 curriculum to be posted and the schools to have an advisory committee to talk about curriculum. There are certain tenets that cannot be promoted. One example that's in the bill is that in a classroom, you would not be able to promote whether one sex, race, ethnicity, religion, color, national origin, or political affiliation is superior or inferior than another. So there are quite a few things spelled out in the bill. As I said earlier in the beginning, higher ed was included in that bill. It was included throughout, and then there was a specific section targeting teacher preparation programs. All of the references to higher education that we were concerned about have been taken out, and so now it's largely just a K-12 bill, and that will move on to the Senate. 2 bills in the Senate to talk about that do have somewhat of a fiscal. One is Senate Bill 138. The title of it is Eligibility for Resident Tuition. So this bill was heard in the Senate Education Committee, but it never received a vote. And today was the last meeting for that committee. So unfortunately, the bill is essentially dead. What it would have done is allow certain undocumented students to qualify for resident tuition at our state's institutions. The eligibility criteria outlined in the bill actually aligns with Purdue's practice and then adds a requirement that the individual would have to file an affidavit with the institution stating that they filed or will file an application to legalize the individual's immigration status. So we did get involved in this bill as well. Purdue Northwest has a strong relationship with Representative Andrade in that area, and he reached out to us. And as a result of that conversation, we provided a letter of support and shared that with the bill's author as well as the Senate Education Committee. The last bill that I'll just kind of touch on at a high level is Senate Bill 366. This deals with higher education funding. So you guys may be aware that Indiana currently has a performance funding formula. The formula is what determines how many new operating dollars the state-funded public institutions receive. So this bill that is on third reading in the Senate tomorrow, it codifies some current practices related to how the institutions work with the Commission for Higher Education, and then it requires the Commission for Higher Education to share the results of that performance funding formula, now called an outcomes-based formula, with legislators during the budget process. It also as an additional requirement for the Commission for Higher Education to evaluate capital projects. So in Indiana, the Commission for Higher Education, we as institutions put together a budget request. We share that state budget request with the commission. They evaluate our requests, and then they make their own recommendation that they share with the legislature. Part of that request and the recommendations is the operating funding, which I talked about, that's determined based on the performance funding formula. There are some line items for each institution, and then another large part is capital funding. So some years the state does fund new capital for us or repair and rehabilitation projects that we request through this process. And so the bill would put in a new requirement for the Commission for Higher Ed to develop metrics on which those capital requests are evaluated, starting with the 2025 budget. So like I said, at a high level, those are 4 other fiscal and then education bills that we've been dealing with. And now I will turn it over to John to talk about some of the ag bills.
Thank you. So first of all, let me lay just a little bit of groundwork. The College of Agriculture at Purdue has regulatory responsibilities for feed, seed, fertilizer, pesticides, and that's all under the state chemist. Then we get into the Egg Board, and we have the Creamery Licensing Board. And then under the College of Veterinary Medicine, we have the Animal Disease Diagnostic Laboratory. So those are all services, regulatory programs, and things that Purdue provides for the state of Indiana. So the first bill that I'm going to talk about is one that we actually had introduced. It's a state chemist bill. It deals with seed and the funding for seed. That in the House is 1147 and it's 129 in the Senate. And they're both identical. Both have passed both houses. And basically what they do is one is we normally register a package of agricultural seeds that weigh 1 pound or less. Well, over years, there's just none of those anymore. These are not vegetable seeds. These are actually agricultural seeds that would come in a branded package weighing 1 pound or less. And there's a $45 fee for those. And we've been registering 6 in the last few years. So we're basically doing away with that category, and they would just pay the normal poundage fee that they would pay for the inspection fee that goes on. Secondly, then we get into giving us rulemaking authority for setting our fee with the inoculant law. Inoculants are microorganisms that are basically that you put on seed that help them to get started. We regulate that. Currently, that fee is set by the legislature in the law, and the rest of the fees for in the seed law are done by rule. And so to get it so that we have the same way of doing this, we've changed that so that we can set the inoculant fee by rule whenever we do the other one for seed. Another component in this deals with our seed testing. So when we, the state chemist, you can submit a seed sample to the state chemist to do a germination test and a purity test. Our fees are set by rule. They're very low, and the rulemaking process is very slow in Indiana. Excuse me. So we've been basically want to get that to where we are commensurate with the rest of the industry, and that mostly in Indiana is Indiana Crop Improvement Association. So this language would allow us to basically set our fees on a yearly basis that's commensurate with the industry and other folks. So that's one that we've had introduced, we've shepherded it through the process and dealing with. Another one that we were involved with, our food science folks and myself and others, was home-based vendors. And this is basically the ability for folks to make products in their home, in their kitchen, and then sell them. Excuse me. This was came up actually last year. A lot of concerns over food safety issues in dealing with that. There was a work group put together over the summer. One of the big concerns of our folks in food science was that there be some kind of food safety training for these folks. And so that was put into the legislation. It also then limits the products that can be produced to non-hazardous type food products, which are basically baked goods and jellies and some of those kinds of things. Anything that has would be either like a lot of egg product in it, or dairy product, or meat products. All of those things are considered potentially hazardous, and they would not be in there. So this would allow someone, though, to make something in their kitchen. They could sell it at a farmer's market. They could sell it at a roadside stand. And basically, they could kind of do that before. This allows them to go further. They could go to like an event of some kind. If you had a festival, they could set up a stand. They could sell. Now with this, they can also sell online. But they are limited to only being able to sell within Indiana. So you can't, even if you're selling it online, you can't sell it to someone and ship it out of state, because then you get into a lot of federal regulations and those things in dealing with that. So that's two that we've been involved with and some of our folks. But let me just give you an idea of kind of what we've dealt with in the House Ag Committee. So we have one here for horse racing veterinarians. So this is basically allowing a veterinarian that's trained but not necessarily licensed in Indiana to do testing of horses at horse race tracks. Then we have one on cannabis regulation. And I will tell you this, in this session we have, I don't know the exact number, but I think at least 14, maybe more bills dealing with hemp, marijuana, or cannabis. This has become a big issue, and it's one you're going to hear a lot about in the future. Where it ends up, I don't know how it's all going to end. The state chemist actually regulates the growing of hemp in the state of Indiana. That's another function that the state chemist provides. We had veterinary medicine, a bill dealing with that. Basically, under the state veterinarian, you have the Board of Animal Health, and it also brings in the veterinary practitioners licensing board under the state veterinarian, and creates the Center for Center for Animal Health Policy in the state. Home-based vendors, I mentioned. We had service animals, that was heard, and purchases from youth agricultural programs, that was another one. Had one on commercial feed. Basically, it was allowing the feeding of hemp. That bill was not heard in the House committee. Similarly, over in the Senate, we had one dealing with return of lost pets to owners. You had equine dentistry. That's been an issue for a long time. Of course, our bill was seed test, home-based vendors again. And then another one that actually came out of committee is foreign business ownership of agricultural land. So there's lots of things that even come under agriculture when you're dealing with the House and the Senate. So with that, I will stop, but thank you for your time. Thank you for your concerns. And if you look at my picture, this is as close as I'll ever come to having a halo. So Just remember that. I'd be happy to take any questions. I know all of us are. So thank you. Thank you. And I hope you're having a great experience at Purdue.
Thank you, John, Alicia, and Ann. And with that, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions from senators. Go ahead, Senator Terrell.
Good evening, and I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for being here. So my name is Sydney Terrell, and I'm a senator for the College of Education. So I think, Alicia, this one might be more pointed towards you, but has Purdue Purdue concerned with enrollment and transfer rates if the House Bill 1134 passes? Because I personally know at least 10 people that are going to transfer out of education if it goes through. So I didn't know if the university had put any thought into the decrease of enrollment, which possibly may happen if it passes.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I certainly can understand also and appreciate the concern. I will say that we are now out of the bill. So that is the good news moving forward in terms of their higher ed teacher prep programs are not included. We are not, there's a definition that included us kind of throughout the bill, even under these K-12 sections, and we are no longer included in that. So, you know, the House of Origin took those pieces out of the bill. And like I said, the Senate actually decided to out a press release that they would not move their version of that bill forward. So I feel pretty confident in saying that the version that it is now, if it continues to move forward, I don't see us being included in it. You never know, things can always change, but hopefully we will remain out of it. And so that will no longer have to be a concern for students.
Thank you, Alicia. Would you like to ask a follow-up question? Yeah. Go for it.
I apologize. Let me clarify my question a bit. It wasn't that it was going to impact our education, like our classes, but we are the teachers of the next generation. So like I'm elementary ed, you know, there's secondary ed and all kinds of different eds. And this would clearly restructure the way that we teach, you know, going forward. So that's what I meant by a lack of enrollment, because a lot of people generally don't want to teach under these new restrictions, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, I do. I definitely understand what you are saying. And I know that that is a concern and that concern was raised throughout the process. So, you know, like I said, it is something that we talk about and we consider when we are getting involved in these bills. And, you know, what our job is to protect and represent the university. And we did have conversations with staff and legislators on this bill. And I do feel like moving forward, you know, it's hard to say what happened, but we do hear those concerns. And like I said, we did have conversations about those.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I know that was kind of probably left field.
Thank you, Senator Terrell. Any other questions from senators? Senator Dodona.
Hello. I wanted to thank you for coming to speak to us as well. I know we all really appreciate it. My name is Senator Dodona. I'm a senator for the College of Exploratory Studies, and I believe my question is also targeted more towards Alicia. So you brought up a House bill revolving around free speech. I believe it was House Bill 1190. It was mentioned that while Purdue supported the sentiments, they had some issues with the free speech zones and the time, place, manner restrictions. I was hoping that you could sort of clarify those concerns for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that the bill is written now, there's a section that essentially what the language would do would prohibit free speech zones from college campuses in the state. Purdue does not have free speech zones. And so we don't feel that that would apply to us, but Also, the way that the language is written, it's almost written in the inverse. And so it's very confusing and hard to interpret. And what a lot of these free speech on college campus, what the real issues hinge on is time, place, and manner. And so that's something, you know, as a university, when we're evaluating if there is any issue with, maybe you want to have a protest, but you want to do it in this lawn, and at that time there's going to be, for example, someone mowing. We may say, you know, at that time there is going to be someone there, maybe have the protest over here. So time, place, and manner is something that we as a university and other universities look to when we're making decisions on these things and where the most appropriate place to have the event is. And so we think that that is a strong, is a piece of the legislation that needs to be very clear in terms of interpreting how we need to enforce what the legislature is requiring of us. So I hope that makes sense. It's a complex issue, and sometimes, you know, when you're reading this language, the way that you read it and the order in which they put certain sections can make a huge difference. And so we're just hoping to clarify that. And that clarification would just align with Purdue and the other state institutions' practices.
I might add, Alicia's done a great job of laying out some of the concerns. Another piece I might add to that we have really focused on is, for anybody that has really followed First Amendment cases, much of this takes place, if you will, in the courts and not through state statutes. And the state legislative process is wonderful, but the reality is that if you put something in law, it's going to take another law to change it. And so as case law may evolve in this space, we were also of the opinion that, if you don't put something in statute, if you don't get really prescriptive in statute, then it can be more evergreen and evolve as the case law then evolves. So that was just a difference of opinion about whether something like this should be detailed in a statute and be technical, or should we be looking to Supreme Court cases that would continue to govern this space. And that's just a difference of opinion that we had. And they're the legislators, so they're going to move forward as they see fit. But never at any point was there a disagreement in the intent and what they were trying to do. And Purdue is really a model in this space in the state and nationally. And so we were continually reminded that, this was not something that was meant to be negative towards our campus. They really appreciate what's being done here with the Boiler Gold Rush orientation, our policy on free speech, and want to see more schools do more of what we're doing here.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Pro Temp Reynolds.
Hi, thank you. I have another question about the free speech bill, the House Bill 1190 that you talked about. So I, in PSG, I also work on the University Senate Committee, a Student Affairs Committee, and we recently talked about the possibility of updating the harassment policy and the free speech policy as well to include like social media and like virtual harassment and cases that involve free speech, like things that people get traced back to, like relating to university. So I just wondered if the bill talks about online harassment and free speech at all.
At this point, the bill does not talk about online harassment. One of the definitions Anne was talking about is the definition of harassment, which is aligned with a Supreme Court case right now. But no, it does not contemplate that specifically.
Yeah, neither does ours, so it's just something.
Awesome. Thank you, Pro Temp Reynolds. Any other questions from senators? Yeah, go ahead. Senator Bowman.
First of all, just thank you all for coming. My name is Claire Bowman. I'm a senator for the College of Science. My question is for Anne, and it's specifically about the COVID response bill, specifically the part where the COVID vaccines, the mandation for like COVID vaccines on employees. And I know you mentioned that there would be, possibility for exemptions. I was just kind of wondering, if that possibility or that scenario were to arise, is there kind of like a clear channel that someone filing an exemption to that policy would have to go through, and how would, a disagreement on that matter be resolved?
That's a great question. And I'm happy to follow up if I can get your contact info. I'm happy to follow up directly. I don't want to misspeak on where things landed in the language. That became very closely negotiated, and I am not current on how the language ended up in the House. This is not something that because Purdue has not mandated the vaccine, that we have chosen a different approach and been very successful with that. This is not something that that portion of the bill was not something that we were following closely. So if I can get your contact info, I'm happy to follow up with where the final language ended up.
Yeah, I can provide that to you, Ann. No worries.
Excellent.
Any other questions from senators? Go ahead, Senator Ferguson.
Yeah, I actually, out of left field, have a quick question for John. So my name's Lily Ferguson. I am a senator for the College of Agriculture, and I'm actually a food science student. And I had a question about the home-based vendor training. I was wondering the logistics of, if this bill was to go through, how are we planning on training these vendors? Would this be like a similar training to how we're currently looking towards implementing like the Food Safety and Modernization Act through Purdue, or is there a different mechanism that's currently in place?
Basically now, we train folks that work and it's Serve Safe, I believe, folks that work in restaurants, that sort of thing. It's called Serve Safe training, and that would be the main one I think that Purdue would provide. It's done through extension, but there's others. There's other programs nationally, and there's even some online programs, I believe, that would qualify that folks could go to.
Thank you, Senator Ferguson. John, I had an additional question. First, I'm really excited to hear the progress that's been made on the home-based vendors bill, because I was able to kind of get a look at that through my summer internship this past summer. But could you speak to a little bit kind of what it means for Purdue to be a land-grant institution in a policy space? I know you kind of talked about the various offices and regulatory kind of parts of it that are housed at Purdue, but just kind of how that's related to our land-grant status.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back to the basically the land grant, and I don't even know. I mean, maybe this is one of the things we ought to talk about. Why, how we became what are land grants? I don't know if everyone knows that or not, but basically that was legislation that was passed in 1862. If I remember correctly, it was the Morrill Act. It wasn't a new idea, and it was basically to establish universities or colleges to train the sons and daughters of the working class in the United States. And the reason it passed in the 1860s was because, if you remember, that was the middle of the Civil War. And so all the southern states historically had blocked it. They thought more that education should be for the aristocracy. So they passed the legislation. It's called a land grant because they had no money to do this, but they had land. And so what they did was they granted land to each of the states to use to build and start a university. Interesting from the standpoint, it basically, if you were east of the Mississippi, your land was in the west. So the land that Purdue was actually given is now part of Nebraska. And that was sold. And so the states could then sell the land and use that to start the university. So that's why they're called land grants. If you get west, for example, at New Mexico, at Las Cruces, the university, that's the land that they were given, and they own most of the land in the city, or have sold it at times, but they own a lot of land all around Las Cruces, for example. So that's the role of the land grants. It was to basically teach the mechanical arts, agriculture, those kinds of things, and again, for the masses. If you look, they've done an absolutely superb job. In the agricultural role, then, we have extension, which is basically to work with folks, take research, new ideas, those things out to folks to adopt. We have, of course, research, agricultural research, and then, of course, we have the agricultural education side. That was basically the beginning of it. So that's kind of the role of the land grant. Now, let me get back to so the question that you're asking about, why are we involved more in the regulatory? Back in the late 1800s, when they started having things like, and ours started with, farmers wanted to know, when they started to use fertilizer, lime, those kinds of things, especially lime, they said, how do we know that this is a good product? And somebody said, well, we have a agricultural chemist at Purdue University, and he can test lime. So they created the Office of the Indiana State Chemist. And that happened to be a gentleman named Harvey Wiley. And he was kind of an eccentric. He was actually sanctioned by the trustees once for riding a bicycle on campus, which was very interesting. But he was the first Indiana State Chemist. He left Purdue and went to USDA in the late 1800s, and actually went on to become the founder of the FDA, the Food and Drug Act. And there's a new book, I say new, in the last few years, about the work that he did in testing food, and it's called the Poison Squad. And basically what he did is he took food ingredients and chemicals and things that were used in processing and fed them to a group of people. And if they got sick, they didn't use them. And if they didn't, why, they were okay. And so they used them. So anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to know. But I'd be happy to answer more questions. Or did I give you a good answer?
Yeah, you did. Thank you, John. Any other questions from senators? Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And John and Alicia, thank you so much for coming to meet with us tonight and sharing some updates about the legislative session. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause.
You guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Alrighty. Hello, and with that, now at 7:58, I'll now call the meeting to order. Before we get started with any official business, I'd like to invite our new College of Science Senator Claire and our Chief Justice down so Claire can be installed. Hello?
Hello. Okay, cool. All right, Claire, just repeat after me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Hello. Don't hold it?
No. There you go. Just leave it.
Okay. All right, okay. Claire, just repeat after me, okay? I, and then state your name.
I, Claire Bowman,
On this day of January 26th, 2021.
on this day of January 26, 2022,
Oh man, all right. Swear to abide by and uphold
swear to abide by and uphold
the Constitution and the bylaws
the Constitution and the bylaws
of the Purdue Student Government.
of the Purdue Student Government.
I swear to conduct
I swear to conduct
all legislative business
all legislative business
with the utmost integrity
with the utmost integrity
and with the best interest of Purdue University and its student body
and with the best interest of Purdue University and its student body
as my main objectives.
as my main objectives.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job, buddy. Thank you. Alrighty, with that, we'll get started with our introduction of visitors. If you're a visitor, please turn on your mic and state your name and reason for being here. Do you have any visitors? I don't think we do tonight, except our appointees.
Hi, I'm Brandon Johnson. I'm here to hopefully be appointed to the elections director position.
I'm Kimberlyn Vassil with the Purdue Exponent.
Alrighty. Now we'll move on to proxy reports. If you're a proxy, please state your name and the senator you're proxying for. And just as a reminder to turn on your mic, you'll want to put your finger on the mic in front of you and just hold it there.
You can say it.
My name's Jaden Nye, and I'm a proxy for Matt Stockler.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other proxies tonight?
Morgan Hines, College of Agriculture for Scott Ashby.
Thank you, Morgan. Any other proxies? Alrighty. Hearing no more proxies, we'll go ahead and move into a roll call taken by our secretary.
Hello, I will be taking roll call now. If you're here, please say here. Veronica,
Here.
Nate,
Here.
Lily,
Here.
Joshua,
Here.
Sydney,
Here.
Julia,
Here.
Harley,
Here.
Mason,
Here.
Hadley,
Here.
Evan,
Here.
Eleanor,
Here.
Cameron,
Here.
Garrett,
He's excused. It's okay.
Mohammed,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Andrew,
Here.
Adam,
Here.
Matt Thomas, Lynn,
Here.
Claire,
Here.
Deanna,
Here.
Divya,
Here.
Ishida,
Here.
Sophie.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Vivian, Matt just said on the in Slack that he's here, but his Zoom is having some sound issues. Now for our land acknowledgement. Purdue Student Government acknowledges the traditional homelands of the indigenous people upon which Purdue University is built. We honor and appreciate the Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, and Shawnee people who are the original indigenous caretakers of this land. Now moving into our pledge of purpose, senators, please rise. Our purpose is to be the voice of the Purdue student body, serve the needs of students in all university matters, and provide leadership that stimulates initiative, inspires excellence, and exemplifies professionalism. And above all, hail Purdue. Thank you. With that, the minutes for the last meeting were distributed to you all via Google Drive. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. Now moving into executive reports, President Kang.
Oh, you caught me off guard. No, I don't have anything for now. I did send out the spring retreat ice skating form. We just need to get a head count on how many people we can have at the rink. So please fill that out ASAP. I think you guys were just coming out of caucus. Besides that, I have a whole to-do list. Not gonna overwhelm with you guys right now, but just always come to me with any questions and concerns, and I'm here for you.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and share mine. They're pretty brief, but just keep a lookout for a thing on Slack, a poll about what dates work best for our YWCA Day of Service. It won't be mandatory. It'll be a way for everyone to accomplish their service requirement. But I just want to see if, which dates work better for best possible outcome. And then additionally, just kind of encouraging as we're getting back into the second semester, our last semester together, unfortunately, unless you want to run again, which is exciting. But just kind of thinking about, why you ran, why you wanted to represent the constituencies that you do, and just really reflecting on those goals. And if you have any legislation ideas, dream big, dream small, doesn't matter. Veronica and I would love to help you with that. So just wanted to shout that out there. Just kind of do some reflection in the next week, and just if you have any ideas, we'd love to help you with them. Moving on to our Chief of Staff, Vince, go ahead.
Sorry, I switched it up on you today. Everything's going good from BOD. We're rolling. Events and stuff are still going great. People have a lot of really cool initiatives, specifically tailored towards Olivia and Shannon's platform that they ran on, so I'm really looking forward to those. We'll be reaching out to some senators in the near future. I'm pretty sure one of our co-EDs for SP&A came in and talked. Yes, okay, I'm seeing the heads. That's big because there's a lot of things that we've been looking into that are a little bit more policy changes, and some committees are wanting to turn a little bit away from some events and into some more broad scoping changes that would be lasting other than a few hours. And so we have really put the SP&A committee solely on that, and what's going to be happening is people are going to be getting the data through tabling events and different initiatives through the surveys as well that are sent out via email. But then also we're going to be coming to you all as senators because clearly we need some help in writing legislation. I've never written anything other than an appointment bill, which I do have a lot of practice on, but it's nothing like a resolution or a bill. I'm really looking forward to the collaboration there because that doesn't happen very often, but things are rolling. The people that are up for tonight, I hope you enjoyed them in caucus. I know that they're ready for the job, and I'm looking forward for Braden here as well for the elections director position, but rest assured, we're all good.
Awesome, thank you, Vince. Any other executive reports? Go ahead, Sean.
The 3 applications were due last week, so those will be reviewed and awarded in the next week. As a last final reminder, the SFAB application, that's for initiatives over $15,000, is due February 1st at 11:59. Again, it does not need to be an organization. If you are working on one or have friends who are working on one and procrastinated and have questions, please email Mike or I. We will do our best to get to them. They've been rolling in all week. And then SOGA period 4, if there's any clubs that want to do something over the summer, that is now open and due April 4th. As grants on the PSG side, just as a reminder, all of the colleges and the standing committees have set aside budgets that you should spend before the end of the year. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Sean. Any other executive reports?
Yeah, so I know a lot of you haven't heard about ABTS this year. That would be my fault, but also ABTS hasn't done a ton this year. However, this weekend, a couple of us are going up to Madison, Wisconsin for that conference, for the annual conference. And whenever that happens and we come back on our next Senate session, we'll update you on everything that's going on in the Big Ten, as well as for Mental Health Action Week. Piggybacking off Sean, we are applying for SFAB so that we do not have to cut into the PSG budget next year.
Awesome, thank you for those updates, Andrew. Any other executive reports? Seeing none, we'll move into committee reports, internal affairs.
Yeah, So IA, as you guys can see on the agenda, have our two big pieces of legislation that we worked last semester on. Upcoming, we're going to be looking towards MHA as well as some new projects that we.
Awesome. Thank you, Lily. Financial affairs?
Yeah, so we're still moving ahead with the PSG Small Grant Program. We sort of hit a stagnation on those applications. So if you guys know anybody who's interested in getting some money for a event on campus, please send them our way. Or the organizations that you guys are in, other than PSG, also have them fill out the application. It's really easy. And we give food money, which is different from everybody else. In addition to that, we've been working on the fiscal guidelines, getting updates on that, getting feedback, and hopefully you guys will see that next Senate session.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Dodona. CSRA?
We're currently waiting on PUPD to get back to me with some emails and information. Other than that, we're meeting tomorrow to figure out what we're going to do for MHA.
Awesome. Now moving on to UAA.
Yeah, so we're going to meet up with Jeffrey Elliott, the Director of Academic Advising, talk to him for some projects, and then other than that, just MHA event planning.
Cool beans. Getting excited for MHA. Any ad hoc reports? Senator Dodona.
Yes, so SAFER's been moving full steam ahead. Last week, Senator Ferguson and I had a meeting with the Title IX coordinator, and that was a really awesome meeting and gave us a lot of direction on sort of where to take SAFER and the policy side, particularly with the action plan. In addition, we've been doing we're heading towards event planning season with Sexual Assault Awareness Month coming up, as well as our annual consent tea party, so moving full ahead in that as well.
Awesome. Is Sexual Assault Awareness Month March?
April.
Okay. Cool beans. Any other ad hoc reports? Senator Silver?
Yeah, so the Pride Ad Hoc Committee, we had a meeting last week, maybe. We just discussed some projects that we were thinking about working on, and I was just getting in touch with the University Registrar Keith Gayers about adding pronouns into things such as Brightspace on course lists and stuff, just like getting pronouns being everywhere that students can access and edit as they please.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn. Any other ad hoc reports? Andrew?
Yeah, so back with more MHA stuff. So currently the bandanas are being ordered, as well as the resource cards that are being stapled onto them. The brochures that we'll be handing out this year, those are also coming in, as well as an exciting gift this year, which would be an ad at Mackey. So right now, Veronica is talking to athletics, as well as some other athletes in athletics, to host a 15 to 20 second video that will be played at the last game of the year, which is the IU Purdue game right before MHA, to advertise for the following week.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Any other ad hoc committee reports? Okay, now we'll move on to informal discussion. Do we have any informal discussion at this time? Seeing none, we'll move into old business. Do I hear any old business? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Do I hear any new business at this time? Senator Chris?
Motion to bring up Bill 2156.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2156, the Supreme Court appointment of Justice Sophia Babcock. This is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. With that, I'll go ahead and allow Sophia to introduce herself, maybe give a little bit of background and maybe why you think you're qualified for this position.
All right. Hi, so I am Sophia Babcock, and I'm a sophomore in political science and law and society. I also have a minor in forensics. And yeah, so this has been my first year on the court, and during the fall semester I was a clerk, and before the spring semester I applied to be an associate justice. So yeah, I have had a background in kind of like some student councils, and I've had a really big interest in courts and really getting to know the law, and I think that the Purdue Supreme Court is a great way to learn about that and also be active in kind of advocating for and, you know, sometimes with my fellow peers. And so yeah, I think that the court is just a great way to kind of branch out and kind of get to know more people who have kind of familiar interests. So yes.
Thanks, Sophia. Eric, would you like to say a few words?
Sure deal. Yeah, Sophia's been great. I hired her on along with that huge, batch of people who I talked about back in August when I hired, 10 or 11 new members of court to get us restocked. And quite simply, she has just shined through and really done her job extremely well this past semester. She pursued the opportunity to become a justice when it was available to her back in August. And we, just out of abundance of precaution, I wanted to make sure I gave a lot of clerks some time to understand the role a little bit more. And then when it came time to do the associate justice application, she did a fantastic job with it. And she's had the experience to understand how court works, what rules that we need to enforce are that come across our docket quite often. And yeah, she's done a great job, and I have full confidence that she's going to make good decisions.
Thank you, Eric. I'll now open it up to questions from senators. And any senators online, I'm monitoring the Zoom, so you can use the raise hand function, and I'll see you. Any questions for Sophia? Oh, Senator Dodonna.
I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more about what you enjoy about court and what you're excited for when moving into a justice position, hopefully.
Right, so I currently, outside of Purdue, I have a position as an intern at one of the law offices, and it's a nonprofit. And so it also helps me kind of take the things that I learned from the student Supreme Court, and I take that into my daily intern tasks. But yeah, I've learned quite a bit. I've learned a lot about a lot of the parking cases that we get, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully we don't have many issues with elections this year, but I'm looking forward to knowing those as well. But yeah, so I'm very excited to learn more about that, and I think that Eric started up this year at the beginning of the semester. All of the clerks and the justices had to go through the Community Standards Board training, and that was really helpful in just learning about some of the kind of more implicit things that we don't know about that goes into making decisions. And also just learning about the importance of holding everyone accountable, even though we might still be in college, making different decisions, but holding everyone accountable and being able to use our rules to help others. That answers your question. I might have gotten a little off topic. I'm sorry.
Sounds like you're all good. Any other questions from senators? With that, Sophia, I'll go ahead and ask you to step out for a second while we vote. Senators, I dropped it in the Slack again, but just for ease with people on Zoom and in person, if we could vote via that Google form, that'd be great. I think we're still waiting. Oh, Senator Terrell. Got it. Senator Thomas on the Zoom. Someone can go ahead and grab Sophia. Thank you. Maybe she got lost. Did she leave? Oh, there we go. Okay, with a vote of 23-0-0, Bill 2156 passes unanimously. Congratulations, Sophia. Do I hear any other new business at this time? Can we go ahead and get through all new business? Is that all right? We're getting rolling. Senator Chris?
Motion to bring up Bill 2157.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2157, the cabinet appointment of the co-executive director of diversity and inclusion, Amanda Shee. This is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. With that, I'll go ahead and allow Amanda to introduce herself, share a little bit about herself, all that jazz. Go ahead.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Amanda. I am a senior in political science and Asian studies with minors in history, human rights management. Last year, I was a senator for the College of Liberal Arts, and I decided to move into the board of directors this year. This past semester, I've been serving as a director in diversity and inclusion. So I'm really hoping to be able to continue the great work that Haley did last semester where she left off to make campus more inclusive and accessible to all minorities.
Thank you, Amanda. Vince, would you like to go ahead and speak to her appointment?
Yep. Like I said, I'm pretty much going to say the same thing for almost everybody that's put up. Like, yes, I do believe they're ready. Amanda has definitely been the star director for her committee in the fall, and she came heavily recommended both from the ED that decided to step down for personal reasons and from the other co-executive director who is still there, Izzy Bent.
Awesome. Thank you, Vince. President Kang.
Got a promotion. So Amanda, yes, I just want to attest to Amanda's willingness and eagerness to work as a director for D&I and now as the ED. She just so easily hopped from the legislative branch to the executive branch, which I applaud, and she seems to be enjoying her time as a director in D&I. I can attest to her work ethic. She's definitely very attentive to all diversity and inclusion matters, and I think her expertise in that will definitely help guide the committee. So really excited to have her, and I fully trust her taking this position as ED.
Awesome. Thank you, President Kang. We'll now open it up to senators for questions or discussion. Go ahead, Senator Bowman.
Hi, Amanda. I guess I kind of have two questions in one for you. The first would be, what, personally does a commitment to diversity and inclusion mean to you? And secondly, how are you going to continue to foster the spirit of, diversity and inclusion at Purdue? Like, do you have any, specific ideas or ways that, you can continue to foster just inclusion at Purdue?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, as a member of the LGBTQ community, as well as the neurodivergent community, it's something that affects my daily life, but it is also something that I want to make sure I help address with all Boilermakers. I am a white woman, I want to address that, but I also want to make it clear where I'm not informed. I want to educate myself, I want to learn, I want to grow, in order to make campus more accessible, inclusive, diverse, because that's where we really learn, that's where we really grow. So some initiatives that I'm currently working on, I've only been really in the role for a week or so, but I'm working on getting pronoun training for BOD as well as executive directors within student government, trying to work on a pronoun policy as well for Purdue on a Title IX level. And I'm also hoping to work with SPNA in order to see where Boilermakers feel there is need to improve and how we can best do that.
Awesome. Any other questions, Senator Dodona?
I want to sort of second what I said in caucus, as well as both Shannon and Vince's praise of Amanda. I've had the chance to work with her on multiple occasions within Senate, within SAFER, within an advisory committee role, and I think she's an awesome choice for this position and will do fantastic in it.
Mm-hmm. Retweet. Any other discussion? Okay, with no further discussion, Amanda, I'll go ahead and have you step out. And again, senators, please see the Google form for voting. Senator Ashby's proxy, we're still waiting on you. I think that's it. Awesome. Okay. Can someone go grab her? Go ahead and go pass it, and then we'll applaud her when she comes back. With a vote of 23-0-0, Bill 2157 passes unanimously. Give her another round. Alrighty. With that, do I hear any other new business? Go ahead.
Motion to bring up Bill 2158.
Second. It has been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2158, the cabinet appointment of the co-executive director of technology, Si-Wen Hu. This is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. Would you like to go ahead, Si-Wen, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background and your experience to prepare you for this role?
Hey everyone, my name is Si-Wen and I am a junior in computer science major. I joined PSG last semester and acted as a director for technology committee, and now I am up for a promotion. Yeah, so I just hope that I can act as a co-executive director and help just to maintain the website and do some renotification for it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Vince, would you like to speak on her appointment?
Yep. So Matt, who is our other co-ED for technology, had been requesting some help for a while now, and we told him just to hold tight until the end of the semester and we'd help pick up the slack for him. But after Shannon and I talked and met with Si-Wen, we felt like she would be the right fit for the job and also have a good dynamic with Matt. I think that role is really important for EDs to be able to play well off one another to help the committee be as successful as possible, and I know Si-Wen will do that.
President King?
Agreed. We talked to Si-Wen, and I had kind of first met her. I ran into her like at the very beginning of the year, probably before I was even had broken in the office. She was working really hard in the cabinet office. So that was a really great first impression to see her there as a new director to PSG. And she was always really active in the Slacks. And though everyone in the cabinet, in the technology committee is very qualified to fill this, I think out of them, she is definitely the most qualified. So really excited to have you on board. Oh, and she also expressed to me how she's been using a lot of the skills. I think you're a computer science major? Yeah, and so she knows exactly how to navigate the website. And she's been trying to practice at Purdue, just the skill sets of that and just fine-tuning them. And I'm just so glad PSG has given her this opportunity and now more of a leadership opportunity as well.
Yeah, for sure. We'll now open it up to questions or discussion from senators. Alrighty, seeing no further discussion, Si-Wen, I'll go ahead and have you step out for a second. And Amanda will give you your much needed round of applause. Sorry. Senator Merkel on the Zoom. Hope you got it. Senator Fitchner, oh, there you go. Could someone go ahead and go grab her? Thank you. Senator Dona. Pro Temp Reynolds. Could you throw your vote in there? Alrighty. With a vote of 23-0-0, Bill 2158 passes unanimously. Congrats. Do I hear any other new business? Senator Chris?
Motion to bring up Bill 2159.
It has been properly moved and second to bring up Bill 2159, don't know why it says resolution, cabinet appointment of elections director Braden Johnson. This is amendable and debatable and requires majority vote. Braden, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
So my name is Braden Johnson. I just started PSG last semester in the Government Relations Committee. As this semester started, we needed a new co-ED, and so I was originally put up for that position. And as we figured out there was space in this elections director position, I went ahead and expressed interest for that. And so here I am. For qualifications, I mean, I've been in PSG for a little while now, so I have a decent grasp of how this works. I'm at ROTC. I've got a lot of leadership experience over there. Other than that, I think I'm very capable of filling this position well.
Awesome. Thank you, Braden. Vince or Shannon, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I have a lot of great things to say about Braden. As he had stated, we needed a new co-ED for GR coming up this semester, and I do think that once again he was hands down unanimously the best choice for that position. But we really do need an elections director, and one of the problems is that that position has historically been filled a little bit too late, and it really puts that person in a bad spot because most of the times they're external to PSG, and so you're very unfamiliar with how that process works in general, and then you're being asked to run a bunch of events to try and get the word out, start a whole new social media platform, and undertake the grievance process once the campaign starts, which we all know gives you absolutely no life for those few days. So I spoke with Braden about his interest in it, and really part of the reasoning for that, I had 4 big things. One, the biggest is he's willing to ask for help when he doesn't know what's going on, and that will make up ground for years of experience in PSG. If you don't know what you're doing, ask for help, go to the right people, and you will figure it out. That's huge. Additionally, he's internal and he's younger. He's a sophomore. And so the ability for somebody to be able to hold his position that is not going to be just gone the next year and have no transition period for somebody for the next year, I thought would be very valuable as well. He's very structured, if you can't tell already from caucusing here. He's got his life put together, and that's something that I would hope that we look for an elections director, to be completely honest. We can't have people going MIA in the most important part of the year for our organization. And lastly, he's very trustworthy. And I think that, especially over the last year, even watching the United States presidential election process, a lot of people have lost trust in government. And although we are student government, the elections process is something that is concerning each year for a certain group of students, depending on how the process turns out. And Braden will definitely bring integrity to that process. I can't speak highly enough of him. I think he's definitely the one.
Awesome. Thank you, Vince. I'll now open it up to questions from senators. Go ahead.
Traditionally, the PSG elections have had very low voter turnout. What specifically do you plan to do to increase voter turnout that will be different from strategies from previous years?
So I can't speak on the strategies from previous years because I honestly don't know. I haven't been told. But my original plans for increasing voter turnout is I'd like to specifically bring on at least one person to my committee. I have 3 slots minimum. I'd specifically like to bring somebody on that can handle social media for me because that's not my strong suit. And so I'm in contact with a couple clubs from Cranor, marketing type things, and they'll be able to bring some of the skill set there to bring this to a wider audience. And then another one of my thoughts were to have in the rules that are going up today, there's a part that talks about in-person voting locations, and I would like to bring those to this election, specifically in high-traffic areas. So during the election process, if a student that hasn't really paid attention to the election in general sees a long line of students at an in-person voting location, it might interest them enough to where they at least look into it, if not vote themselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Braden. Any other questions from senators? Go ahead.
And could I clarify with those in-person voting locations? Do you intend on if you implement those only doing in-person voting, or do you still intend on doing some sort of form where people could access it online?
It would absolutely be in person and online.
but I don't know if I need to be yielded time. If so, my apologies. I know Senator Chris would do
You're
it
an
for me.
author, so you're okay.
Senator Miranda, is that correct?
Brenda.
Brenda, okay.
Oh wait, no,
So-
this isn't Senator Brenda. I thought you
Okay.
were just correcting us.
Regardless. So the voting has to go through an electronic system for integrity purposes and so that you can actually track that a real Purdue student is voting. And so an in-person location still would be virtual. So there'd probably be iPads or computers that are set up that people would vote that way. So you might be standing there physically in front of people voting, but the entire process has to be electronic.
Are we all good on that one? Senator Dodona?
Yeah, so just to follow up a little bit on your answer about getting the word out there about voting, I know one of the big responsibilities of the election director is forming that election committee. Do you have any sort of policies, procedures, things you want to include in that committee other than the sort of social media chair that you talked about?
Yeah, so my original thought was the 3 minimum members that I'd like is social media, somebody to handle the accounting for finances, because there's a lot of that's going to be coming through my office, and then a deputy that's as knowledgeable as I am with the rules and is able to help me along with the big processes. And then each of the committee members would also be very flexible and able to assist with any other role. And so the 3 other than me are going to be a minimum. Like I said, I'd like to bring at least 2 social media on if I can get them.
Thank you, Senator Dodona, for your question. Yeah. Senator Bowman?
I guess my question would be, I know obviously in the rules it's going to talk about, and we kind of already mentioned, or someone brought up, the possibility that there may be grievances, or, someone may bring up that they see an issue with, just how the election is being conducted in general. How do you, see yourself reacting to that if in that situation? And, what is kind of your plan of action should, somebody bring up an issue like that about the, confidence in the election fairness?
Well, as it states in the rules that are going up today, I'm in charge of determining whether the grievances are complaints or grievances, major or minor. And so there, in the rules, there's already kind of a reference guide to give me some more information about that, given that this is my first time in this position. So I will have help determining whether whatever comes from a campaign is major or minor, if it's a problem. And as it also states in the rules, the minor complaints could eventually turn into a major one depending on how often they happen. So I do have the ability to draw from resources other than just my own experience.
Thank you, Senator Bowman. Any other discussion or questions from senators? Senator Ferguson?
So I was just wondering, a lot of us get involved in the Senate because we either have known someone in the Senate or were elected via colleges, or some people will run just out of knowing about it through someone or another. How are you planning on making sure that the electoral process is accessible to students who have no connection to PSG already?
Mainly, I'm just going to go back to the social media. I really want this to be the biggest election. Just because last year I knew it was happening, but didn't pay much attention to it. I mean, I saw a campaign table, I think, once, and I don't think that's the best thing. And so, yeah, mainly just bring it out there. We're going to have call-out meetings for anybody that's interested, and those are going to be widely publicized. But mainly the social media campaign.
Go ahead, Vince.
Additionally, Lily, one thing that I think had been not able to be implemented before was I was typically getting involved with people's campaigns as a chief of staff, and so it kind of excluded me from being a part of that process. But with me graduating and actually graduating this time and moving on, I won't be around. And so I had been brainstorming that a lot, and it's unfair for 3 or 4 people on a committee to be tasked with getting the word out and starting a new Instagram page. And so our communications committee is actually going to be using the student government Instagram page to help promote that and building the flyers and the materials to assist them so that it doesn't all fall on their backs, as well as all the committees will be required to assist in tabling throughout campus solely just to promote the process, then to promote the election occurring, and then to assist in getting voting and also hosting and facilitating the ballot boxes as well when it's coming up to that time. So it's truthfully not going to fall all onto him, and we're planning on helping implement those strategies because we'd like to see at least 10,000 people get involved.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Vince. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
So the social media campaign that you're talking about in conjunction with the communications committee, how soon is that supposed to get started? Because I know there are a lot of people who are interested, but it just ends up being too late for them because the word doesn't get out to them until the week before signatures are due or something like that. So what's kind of your timeline?
Call-out meetings are coming out very quickly, and I would like to have my committee formed by next week. And so that's kind of ambitious, but as soon as the committee's formed, we will be able to move ahead with getting this campaign up and running as quick as possible because, as I said in caucus, I'm all for efficiency, and I want it to be quick so that, again, we reach as much of the student body as possible. Answers your question.
Senator Fredlin?
Hi, I guess my question is more a conjuncture of like how, if the Senate itself would be utilized in like the other branches, just because I know as like someone who had no PSG experience, I don't know if this would be interesting or not, but having like people come in and just like look at Senate and watch it and kind of advertise that as a part of your call outs or social media, because I had no idea that Senate sessions were open to everyone. So
yeah, that's a great idea. And just to put it on everyone's radar, we're looking at call-out dates for February 3rd, 7th, 15th, and 21st. 3rd, 7th, 15th, and 21st. And if you forget, you can ask me at the end as well. President Kang?
Yeah, so I think that we have the perfect person to fill this position, though it may not seem like it because it's such a the appointment happened in the spring. As the Constitution Amendment shows, like we kind of wanted to change that so that the appointment comes later. Because Olivia and I have been talking about what can we do to improve the elections, and all of our concerns and all of our ideas will go to Braden and also his committee. So do not fear. I think since we found the right person and whoever he appoints, we will entrust in them and lead them to make sure that this election is really successful, not just for the presidential and the vice presidential candidates, also for the senators who are running. Remember last semester we had a big tabling event with both of the presidential candidates and then all of the senatorial candidates. So hoping to mimic that, along with increased number of tables that we have around campus with plugging in our BOD members, and then also obviously the people who are running. That's my little statement there.
Any other discussion? With that, Braden, I'll have you go ahead and step out for a moment. Everyone see the Google form sheet, Google Sheet. Vince, would you mind grabbing him? Thank you. Senator Escunas. Alrighty, with a vote of 23-0-0, Bill 2159 passes. Congratulations, Braden. Do I hear any other new business? Senator Dodona.
I motion to suspend the rules. Suspend the rules, so sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to suspend the rules of the meeting. This requires a 2/3 majority vote, not amendable, not debatable, and just as a clarification, Shannon kind of referenced it a little bit in her discussion, but because of the way our Constitution is set up and when the election rules are constitutionally supposed to be voted on, doesn't align when they're coming to the floor tonight. So yeah, we just got to vote on suspending the rules to allow that vote to take place, and then we'll reinstate them once that's finished. We're going to attempt to take this vote by voice acclamation just to save time. Senators on the Zoom, if you could raise your hand, give a thumbs up, whatever you'd like to do, drop something in the chat. So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. Actually, not voice acclamation. Name placards, sorry about that. 1, 2. Senator Thomas? Okay, awesome. Okay, you can go ahead and lower them down. So we've officially voted to suspend the rules, and now I will hear any other new business at this time. Go ahead, Senator Brutus.
Motion to bring up Bill 2161.
Second.
2160? No worries. Seconded? Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2160, the 2022 election rules. So this is amendable, debatable, and requires a majority vote. I know we have some friendly amendments to get through in here, but I've already kind of debriefed everyone in caucus. No major changes, really just clarifications from some kind of informal rules that have existed in the past, kind of working out some language and putting in some future safeguards for our elections. So with that, do we have any discussion? Chair would also recognize friendly amendments at this time. Senator Ferguson?
Okay, I've got a few friendly amendments.
Go for it.
So first being in Article 6, Section 6.04, Part B, in that first highlighted line, instead of was be followed to be, would be following regulations are to be followed. Do I need to put that in the form of a motion?
No, that's okay. President King, do you accept this friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, I do as well. Moving on to the next one.
Second being same where we're still at. Let's stay on the same page so I don't have to say all that again. But the second part B through F should be C, D, E, F.
Okay, so we're reforming that. President King? Awesome. Any other friendly amendments? And I'll get these changed in the final documents as well.
And then I've got one more before Ellie will go.
Okay.
So on page 19, make this, well, 18 and 19.
Okay.
So in Part E, subsection 4, the numbering underneath that section, so subsection, should be 1, 2, and then it goes back to a bunch of ones for some reason. But it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then those Roman numerals should be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so formatting there?
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'll take a look at that. Any other? Senator Dodona?
Firstly, just sort of clarify the sentiment behind this that we did in caucus. Basically, the goal is that the new addition of the anti-harassment clause within this sort of initially follows the more formal procedure. And so this change that I'm going to friendly amend basically just make sure it's through our process rather than the 60-day process that Purdue normally goes through. I'm so sorry for how long this is. I move that Article 8, Section 8.3, Part B, subsection 4, Part 10, subsection 2, to strike out and is ground for immediate removal by the student Supreme Court, and insert and repercussions will be decided at the discretion of the Supreme Court. And I can send you that as well.
Beautiful. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Senator Dodona, for being so thorough, and Senator Ferguson. President King, are we good on that friendly amendment? Alrighty. With that, do I hear any other discussion? Senator Dodona?
I just wanted to state how much I think the importance of including the anti-harassment policy within this is for the elections, sort of to maintain that integrity both within our standards but also Purdue standards. I just want to second how important I think that is.
Thank you. Go ahead, President Reynolds.
Just for the record, can you quickly go over the edits? Just very quickly.
Okay. Okay. Would we rather you guys do them so I don't misspeak, or?
Oh, no. I just mean the changes you made, like the highlighted stuff that you added.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Yeah, don't worry,
definitely do that. Okay. That's a way different story. Yeah, so I can just quickly run through them. I know I won't pull it up on there, but I'll just give everyone kind of a brief overview. So our first highlighted section, everyone can see this in the Purdue Student Government Drive. It's loading. It's being very slow. We're getting there. One more second. Okay. Yes, so we're looking at section 6.03 campaigning, part F, elections director no later than 24 hours prior to the event. That's talking about communications between campaigns and the elections director, and hosting, marketing, and advertising events. So that used to be a week. We changed it to 24 hours to add a little bit more flexibility. But there are some kind of in-depth, institutional things like APFs that kind of have to go through. So the elections director will be made aware, but it just gives a little bit more, leniency or wiggle room for campaigns. Part B of section 6.04 voting, that was just updating the voting station part a little bit. A lot of that language is super outdated. It talked about desktop computers and computer labs and stuff like that. So we just kind of opened that up, just like Braden talked about earlier. He is hoping to do voting stations this spring, but that just really gives leeway for some guidelines for elections committees in the future to follow. The now new part C of that section, following our friendly amendments, gives the elections committee the option to use a system outside BoilerLink in the future if they'd like, which would probably require some extensive research and kind of some look into what our peer institutions do. Section 6.05 campaign cleanup part A, that's just adding the clause that the cleanup kind of responsibility doesn't fall just fully on all candidates. It also follows on the elections committee so they can assist in that. Moving on to part F of section 7.02 financial records. So that's just clarifying some rules and regulations for utilizing GoFundMes. Primarily that's for presidential and vice presidential campaigns is when they're most commonly used. And those were kind of informal restrictions that existed in the past but had never been put officially into the elections rules. So we just gave that some life. And then just the little changes in section 7.03 financial disclosures are just some clarification things, only requiring a budget report if applicable. So if, say, a senatorial race doesn't have any expenses, they don't need a budget report. And then section 7.05 financial reimbursements, part B, the I. So that's just clarifying the $1,000 in total allocation that is the maximum that each presidential or vice presidential ticket can get. So that's always been a rule, but it was just more of putting clarifying language in there. So in the case of us having potentially 5 different presidential, vice presidential tickets, they all don't think they're getting $1,000. So yeah, that's just clarifying there. And then I know Senator Dodono spoke on the anti-harassment policy a little bit. And I spoke on it in Senate, and I won't go too in depth here, but really the purpose of that anti-harassment policy were really just President King and I reflecting on some situations that occurred during our campaign, really wanted to protect the integrity of what it means to run for this office, what it means to represent this university and this organization, and just really make it clear that action, behavior like that has no place in this body, has no place at this school. So just really making that clear and hoping to protect some candidates in the future. But with that, I don't think does anybody have any questions on those clarifications? I know it was a lot. Alrighty. Any other discussion on Bill 2160? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into a vote, and please see the Google Sheets again. Senator Natur, Senator proxy. Alrighty. With a vote of 23-0-0, Bill 2160 passes unanimously. Woo. And I'll make sure to add those friendly amendments either later tonight or tomorrow morning. Do I hear any other new business? Senator Dodona.
I would like to call for the orders of the day, please.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Dodona. Do I hear any other new business? So we've now officially reinstated the rules. Go ahead, Senator Terrell.
I motion to bring up Bill 2161.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2161, the amendment to the bylaws of the Purdue student government. This is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. And with that, I'll go ahead and kick it over to IA to share those changes.
Okay, so basically this is, the bylaws went first. Sorry, my bad. Basically we have two bills on the floor tonight, one being the bylaws and the other one being the Constitution. Before I start going into the weeds of this, I just want to thank IA so much for working on this with me. Like they all did, and we all did such a great job putting all of this together. And so just to get started on the bylaws, basically there were some minor grammar and spelling mistakes that were fixed at the beginning. I didn't highlight and go through all of them, but just to make it known that those happened. I'm basically going to do what Olivia just did. Bylaws. Scrolling down to page 11, the Senate Associate Member Program is something that we're all kind of familiar with, but there used to be, or at least there should have been, a director of the Senate Associate Member Program, but that hasn't been put into place for the past 2 years that I at least know. So anytime that there's mention of the director of the Senate Associate Member Program, it's just been kind of struck because it's out of practice at this point. Again, that's articles or section 7 of page 15 is, so again, the Senate Associate Member Program doesn't exist anymore, so that was struck, and we brought some of the content of the SAM program from the Constitution to the bylaws. Anytime that the director of the Senate Associate Member Program was supposed to have made a decision, we kind of put that more on the pro temp. And anytime the director was supposed to go to the pro temp, we changed it to the pro temp to the vice president, just to kind of mirror what we're currently doing with this program. In Article 3, looking at cabinet, we took the section from the Constitution that was really wordy and like strung out and put it in the bylaws to give still that big description of what these roles are supposed to be, but instead make it more streamlined in the Constitution and more detailed out in the bylaws. So that has been reflected. In section 2 for BOD, I just kind of made the formatting look nicer. It used to be really long paragraphs, but we kind of made it a bulleted list format to make it a little bit easier for EDs to read if they ever need to go through. It's not they're picking through a paragraph. This one is sort of more important. Article 6, Section 5. So it used to state that we were supposed to have separate agendas for each branch of PSG, but as we're one united PSG at this point, that doesn't exactly make sense anymore. We don't need to list out all of our priorities for each separate branch. Again, if anyone has any opposing opinions to that, it's just not something we've been doing, so it was struck. And then after that is the action plans, and some grammar was changed in a few of them, mostly spelling mistakes, but otherwise those were left alone. But that is the bylaws. Anyone else in IA have any comments, questions, concerns?
Any other comments from IA? Any questions in general discussion? Senator Terrell?
Mine isn't any of the above, but I would like to make a friendly amendment to have my name spelled correctly.
This was taken straight from the from the legislation, so I'm sorry, but I'll fix it right now. Better?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll go ahead and move into a vote on Bill 2161. Please see the Google Sheet. President Kang? Yeah.
Just as we're voting, you did say that was taken directly from the legislation, so if that could also be noted on the legislation. Cindy Terrell's last name.
Yeah. Senator Thomas on the Zoom. I think that's all. Alrighty, with a vote of 23-0-0, Bill 2161 passes unanimously. Do I hear any other new business at this time? Senator Buftos?
Now motion to bring up Bill 2162.
Second. It has been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2162, Amendment to the Constitution of the Purdue Student Government. This is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. Same thing.
Same spiel at the beginning, but this is kind of the amendments to the Constitution, minor grammar edits. When looking, there were some minor wording changes in Section 1, Article 1, Section 1, Part D. I'm just going to give you guys page numbers from now on because that's a lot. But some minor wording changes to be more inclusive to exploratory studies and other colleges that don't have student councils. In duties of senators, just adding more discretion to the president pro tempore if so needed to change. Same thing about the director of the Senate Associate Member Program. And then in Article 4, Section Cabinet, you have that same change. We copied and pasted the things from the bylaws into the Constitution.
Any other discussion on 2162? Senator Terrell, same issue? You can go ahead and state it officially if you'd like.
I would like to propose a friendly amendment to also spell my name right on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. President Kang? Could someone yield the president some time? Senator Chris?
I yield 5 minutes to the president.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chris. All right, so in the duties of the senator, that section, in number 6, it says something about attending the council meetings, but at the discretion of the pro tempore. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, so it kind of is the same to be inclusive to exploratory studies. If a college doesn't have a student council, then it should be at the discretion of the pro tempore. It would be exempt from those rules.
Awesome.
And then another one is for the Senate Associate members. Why was in Part C, so in roles and removal, it says each senator is entitled to a maximum of one SAM per student session. I saw that last time it said minimum. Could you talk about the decision to change it from minimum to maximum to minimum?
Yeah, it was just more of a, and someone else can take this if they feel as though they can explain it a little bit better, but it was more of how it read to all of us was that each person should have a SAM. Like all of us, if you have a minimum of one SAM, then like I should have a SAM, Josh should have a SAM, Ellie should have a SAM. But that's not currently how it is running, so having a maximum of one SAM, so every senator can have one SAM, and not like a gaggle of SAMs running around them.
A gaggle. Good. Okay. Senator Terrell?
Just to add just a little bit to that fantastic explanation. It was more for the idea that senators have specific duties that we know we're signing up for when we get to Senate. So say, you're blessed, and you got 5 SAMs, and then, a little delegation is natural. But if you're suddenly delegating all those tasks you have and then more tasks you're making up to your SAMs, then you're, as a senator, aren't really fulfilling your own duties. You're having other people do it for you. So this just kind of helps regulate that to make sure there's no abuse of power, for lack of better words, because as senators, we have all the power. But it's just kind of to help make sure that things stay a little checked and balanced.
Thank you for that clarification. President Kang?
So just to follow, I think I'm still in my 5 minutes. So I read this as like that you guys are only allowed to bring one SAM to a session, like this being a session, but you're talking about like per senator, you can not have a maximum of one SAM.
So it's more as though like you can have one SAM assigned to you. Like for example, Josh was my SAM last semester. He was assigned to me. So he could come to everything, but he was like my maximum of one. I couldn't have more than this.
Like just in general, not just like today, but and tomorrow you can have not Josh, but maybe I'm your Sam. But just in general, you can only have one.
Yes, that would be how we word.
Okay, okay.
Senator Dodona?
I guess my question sort of goes on with what President King is, and this is honestly a question towards the wording of our governing documents. When we say per Senate session, are we talking about the meeting we currently have as being a Senate session, or are we talking about the entire, like, a semester of Senate as a Senate section? Because I sort of see where President King is saying that if we're saying this is a meeting and I'm only allowed one per meeting, that seems a little pointless, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. Senator Terrell?
Perhaps the wording may be a little elusive on that, but we did mean per, like, semester, or I guess maybe even year, term, whatever you'd like to say. We don't, have any issue with Sam's coming to Senate. It was just more of like, so one senator didn't have, as she so famously said, a gaggle following them into the Senate, and then following them around. So perhaps the wording could use, I don't know if anyone wants to adjust it or not, just let her ride, but I do apologize about that.
Senator Dodona?
Is this wording consistent with the rest of the governing documents is sort of my question, because it might just be my ignorance of that is how it's referred to in the governing documents, but I just want that clarification. And if it isn't consistent, then I'll probably propose something.
Senator Ferguson?
It's the only time that phrase is used in the Constitution. Like with a quick Control F, it's a little weird. I would accept a friendly amendment to strike student Senate session and insert academic year if anyone else is not opposed.
Senator Silver?
Yeah, so I don't know if, I guess it's dependent on how everyone feels about whether or not they want it to be like an academic semester, year, whatever, or just like a singular Senate session like this one specifically. But with the wording that it was originally with, like, each senator has a minimum of one, that would just mean, like, everyone has one, which is the hard part. So I don't know if we want to reword the minimum or if we want to reword the timeline in which someone has a SAM.
Senator Dodona?
So just to address what Senator Silver was saying, not my friendly amendment, which I'm making, won't address the maximum, but rather strike out per student Senate session and insert per academic year, if all authors accept that amendment.
President King, are you proposing that friendly amendment officially?
Yes, I'm proposing it officially.
All of those authors could just give me like a thumbs up, something? Okay, awesome. Perfect. So everyone. President King, did you have something else?
Yeah, I just wait, can someone?
I yield President King 2 minutes.
Thank you, Senator Ferguson. I just have a concern about that given the number of applications that we had for SAMs this year. I don't know how many were delegated, but has that been taken into consideration when writing this portion of the Constitution?
Senator Ferguson?
I at least know for College of Ag, we only had one delegated to our entire college. And I haven't heard of anyone having more than one SAM, if we can just get a nod of heads.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pro Tem Brennan.
I think it's hard. There's no point. Like, it just depends who applies. I believe there's like a lot in like one. Liberal arts, maybe?
I think we have 3.
Either they have 3, which is perfect, but like I have none. So like it's just kind of who applied, but we can think about that too, though.
Senator Brown?
I just sent out my constituent letter and included like SAMs and Senate since I am currently the only one in honors. But I actually had lots of people reach out to me wanting to be a SAM. So kind of, we'll see how it goes going forward. Hopefully the other 2 seats are filled and then we can get 2 more Sams. That was kind of my thought, it's like 3 for 3. But I know of at least 5 people that have reached out expressing interest in the Sam position.
Pro Temp Reynolds.
Times, or like, I guess, what should I like search for to see how many times it talks about like the pairing of them, I guess? Because I remember, like, I don't know how often that happens, like how, I guess maybe I just don't know because there's no Polytech Sams.
We do it on a rolling basis. I mean, when we went through, I think, 2 different application cycles for SAMs this year, our initial one, and then we did a secondary one. And then I also just kind of take them on a rolling basis in terms of when students reach out. I don't know why this is giving me feedback, but when students reach out, shoot an email, sometimes I'll set up a Zoom meeting, ask for their resume. And I've kind of gone about it that way in terms of adding SAMs since those application periods, if that makes sense. But I mean, that isn't outlined, and that's also kind of up to the discretion of, I guess, the executive branch. But
well,
I get what
guess
you're
it's just
saying.
been, like, why was Josh assigned to Lily and not Scott? Like, you know, like, if it could just be 3 in general and not assigned to a person.
And that's generally how I did it. I just kind of said, here are the College of Agriculture SAMs, not necessarily matching 1-to-1.
Okay.
It was kind of, you know, you could decide amongst themselves.
Okay.
President King, did you have something else to add?
I did have a friendly amendment because I think this debate could go on for a little bit, but instead of saying, like, the language that's in that sentence seems very hard. So what if we were to say each senator is recommended to at least 1 Senate associate member, but no more than, I think 5 that number was being thrown around by Sydney per academic year. Because then that allows for a little bit of a wiggle room for if we want more Senate associate members. But again, we have to keep in mind that there are 3 senators most of the time per college, and then adding, if there's a college that has 5 additional Senate associate members, that's pretty much a board of directors committee, given the number. So again, that does give enough distribution of work, but not so much that a senator wouldn't be doing his or her or their own work.
Yeah. Senator Ferguson.
I would agree to that. Just my concern is the sentence before this, that our colleges shall conduct our own interviews and choose the Senate associate member they find to be the best fit for them. It's that ambiguous wording, is that a pair by pair basis, or is that as a college? So if we could change the wording to that, each college is entitled to a maximum of 5 Senate associate members at a time per Senate session, would that fix any of our wording issues?
Per academic year.
Per academic year.
Yeah. We good on that? Are you proposing that friendly amendment officially? Yeah. For that previous line? Authors, good on that? Cool beans. Alrighty.
I will send that to you.
Is there any other discussion on Bill 2162? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into a vote via Google Sheets. Senator Fitchner, Pro Temp Reynolds, Senator Perello, Senator Bridges. Alrighty, with a vote of 23-0, Bill 2162 passes unanimously. Congratulations. And with that, I'd like to invite Eric and Sophia to come down so Sophia can be installed. Yeah. There we go.
cool with you. Alrighty, Sophia, just repeat after me, okay? All right, let's state your name.
I, Sophia Babcock,
On this day of January 26, 2022,
on this day of January 26, 2022,
swear to abide by and uphold
swear to abide by and uphold
the bylaws and the Constitution
the bylaws and the Constitution
of the Purdue Student Government.
of the Purdue Student Government.
I swear
I swear
to conduct all judicial business
to conduct all judicial business
with just and ethical intent
with just and ethical intent
in the interest of achieving a fair resolution.
in the interest of achieving a fair resolution.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Do I hear any other new business? Seeing none, we'll move into announcements. I have an announcement really quick, just thinking about the ABTS conference. If anybody has any questions, concepts, ideas, crazy things you've seen on TikTok, I know I saw a really cool automatic headshot machine thing that I saw at another university on TikTok this week, that you'd like us to discuss with other representatives of ABTS, policies that you'd like to see implemented here that may exist at other universities. Feel free to shoot them to me on Slack, and I'd love to facilitate those conversations on your behalf and get you some contacts at some other Big Ten peer institutions. With that, do I hear any other announcements? Go ahead.
The CSRA people that are here in person, can we just meet real quick? It'll be quick.
Pro Tem Reynolds.
So for all the senators and Sam's in the room, you're invited to the Senate Spring Kickoff event next Wednesday in Croction Forum. Hopefully I'll be able to get my laptop to project quicker this time. But we are gonna just talk about the goals for the year and just overview some stuff, get some team bonding in, and then also there's a form in the Slack to submit your baby photo because we're gonna guess the baby. And then also, looking forward to that. But then also for MHA, we have open registration to register an event for MHA. The deadline to register an event is February 14th, and there is a form that you have to fill out. You can't just do an APF. So if you guys are in outside clubs that are going to do an event for MHA, right? Because you're going to go tell your clubs about it, and they're going to say, yes, we're going to participate and be in this great week of action that PSG is doing. Submit that event in the registration form by Valentine's Day, please. Thank you.
Also, I just wanted to announce the election call-outs one more time. February 3rd, 7th, 15th, and 21st, if you didn't get those the first time. Any other announcements? Senator Darrow.
This has less to do with the fact we're all senators and more the fact to do that we all represent a college. But the College of Ed, so PSEC, has been wanting to do a little bit more outreach on our social media platform because we just have terrible luck. So we're kind of wanting to work with some other colleges to do shout out or something like that, just to get more activity and interaction with everyone, not just PSEC. So if you guys are interested in that, I mean, your senators, not social media people for your colleges, unless you are, but just know that the opportunity is out there in case your college specifically would love to be on our Instagram page that gets no views.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Terrell. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move into Senate snaps. I have a couple this evening. IA, thank you for your help with the election rules, first and foremost. Really appreciate your guys' input and collaboration on that. Congrats on your legislation passing. I know you guys put a lot of work in making sure our Constitution and bylaws are the best that they can be. So I really appreciate that. All of our new appointees that were appointed this evening, thank you. We're excited for your service. And our new Senator, Claire Bowman, and also our new Senator from the last meeting, Josh, who wasn't able to be recognized in person. So all those snaps. And feel free to come up and get yourself a snack. Any other snaps? Senator Farrello?
Quick snap to Sydney, who is now the vice president of PSEC, as well as the head of the member committee. We brought 9 new members to our meeting on Monday after we only had 6.
Awesome.
So
That's
she
awesome.
doubled the size and then some. So nice job.
Woo! Any other Senate snaps? Senator Donona?
I would like to give snaps to my financial affairs committee members. We've been working really hard on our document, and they've been putting a lot of time both in meetings and outside of meetings, and it's been really awesome to work with them, and the document's going great, and they deserve recognition for how much work they've been putting in.
Woo, go FA. Mike, I saw you in the back.
Yeah, advanced snap shout out to Sean for the work we're going to do for SOGA Period 3 review. We are going to be busy, but it's going to be a good time.
Woo! Any other? Senator Ferguson?
I would like to second the snap to IA. Just thank you all for so much of your hard work on these bills. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Woo! Senator Brown?
Snaps to you, Vice President. The Jimmy John's was fantastic. Really good. Didn't eat much today. Came in so clutch. So
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. All for you guys. Pro Temp Reynolds?
Snaps to Ellie. Thank you for covering for me for a hot minute today when I was running late. And then also snaps to all senators, throwing it back to last semester, who got their Senate duties done, which is everyone. So thank you all for communicating and getting that done. And that's something we're also going to talk about next Wednesday. But yeah, good job, everybody.
Woo! That's awesome. Any other Senate snaps? Please come down and get your snack at the end so we can get some fun new snacks for the semester. Seeing no other snaps, the chair would recognize a motion to adjourn. Senator Chris.
Madam Chair, I motion we do now adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly motioned and seconded to adjourn the meeting. It is not amendable, it is not debatable, and requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those,
Aye.
all those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? The meeting is now adjourned.